um, on the recording. Um, just a brief hello, everybody. Happy that you guys could be here to talk some Banlist. Just to keep this short, Henley is going to be the UBell representative here. Lester will be the hero rep for this discussion, and I will just be the general moderator slash host. Me and Henley agreed that basically we're not really going to go over the semi and unlimited stuff. There's something he wants to touch for the unlimited really quickly, but yeah, we're really just going to focus on the forbidden and limited stuff. So I will let Henley start just to get this stuff out the way.
Sure. Well, I'll first say generally, the ban list did hit all the top decks pretty well. I feel like they were pretty strong hits. I think we were talking about the Vanquishal hits were really, really strong, which, depending on your perspective, could be a good or bad thing for you. I think it was a little overdone, but yeah. As for UBell situation, it's gone better now because our pretty much worst matchup before was Vanquishal Canine. That deck has fallen off heavily. Also, though Moon has gotten banned, that's kind of a bad hit for the deck. At the same time, we still have a way to play around it with Reproducus. And we got Lacrima back, so this opened up way more new lines for us. I'll just quickly touch on Phantom Skyblaster, which is one of the cards in the unlimited section. It's this card here. It's okay. Basically, what it does is you can, if it's normal or flipped, you can summon a token equal to the amount of monsters you have, and then you can use this for lines. But the thing is, without Moon, first of all, it becomes way worse, and secondly, it's just it's still too normal summon dependent. Even if you had other monsters and managed to summon a bunch of tokens, it's not really a big deal. So I wanted to say I wouldn't really recommend playing that because we were talking about it in UBell I think yesterday. Okay, as for the rest of the combos, Summon Sorceress has come back. I've seen OCG lists playing Summon Source, and I don't think it's worth at this moment because we can still bridge completely fine between engines. We don't actually need Summon Source to do anything. You could play it, but it's still fiend locking. I believe it fiend locks, and if you summon a fiend, so not really necessary. I can show combos. Should I show them now or show them later? Do you think? I have 2 or 3 saved.
Later.
Later? Okay, cool. Yeah. Anything else I should talk about? I kind of just hit all the UConn stuff.
Lester can give his general thoughts, and then
general thoughts. Okay, I would say just in general, right? I think the biggest winner out of this list is just 2 decks, which is Yummy and Dracotail. Dracotail just because it was completely on hit on this list, and Yummy because it's the deck that loses the least out of this ban list and just weakens everything else, and just by result they end up being the strongest contender for the best deck in the format. But I feel like it's going to be because Yummy is to be the best deck in the format, just Dracotail is going to take advantage of that because Yummy is not really well versed to deal against Dracotail. I would say is one of the hardest matchups that they have. Actually, that is something that I was talking about some of my friends that they are playing Yummy. They say that they just have a really hard time facing Dracotail. Yesterday I was playing locals, and actually Dracotail ended up winning the tournaments, and that's, I guess it makes sense. So I would say those are going to be your 2 most prevalent matchups, or at least I would say for locals, it's going to be Yummies and Dracotails. With Vanquishal, I think it's perhaps one of the biggest losers in this ban list because losing Raisin and Stake Your Soul is just a huge consistency hit for the deck. I'm afraid that trying to play it as a Vanquishal deck is no longer going to be viable in a competitive scene. It's just you're going to play it more like a canine deck that has some vanquish hold cards. And the thing that happened with this list is that um, vanquish hold canine was a deck that was really hard to hand trap, just really hard to hand trap because um, there were so many ways that everything could go wrong, right? Because perhaps you want to stop the raisin, but they have like the heavy border to just tag out, and they get to resolve the effect, or like, well, you get to stop the raisin, but it doesn't matter because they already had the thing that they wanted to search. They were just trying to bait you, um, or they have like another follow up, and then um, just it was just really hard to just hand trap the deck. And now what happens now is that you have to rely more on the canine engine to like build enough bodies to just go into Sarjuya and just try to fix your hand after that, just drawing 4 and returning 3. And if they get to resolve that effect, it's essentially like they get to fix their hand. Like there's no chance they are not drawing into the let's say the Vanquishal engine. They're definitely going to draw into it, and then like it's just going to feel like the old version of Kane and Vanquishal. So the thing that the list is doing right now is that it's just creating a super big choke point for this deck on resolving Sarjuya. Like if they get to resolve Sarjuya, you're losing the game. But if they don't get to resolve it, like they are losing the game really, really hard. So, but the thing is that by the time they have the Saryuya, they will also have like a K9 Reaper to protect it, right? If you want to like Ash Blossom it, if you want to like Effect Baylor it. Obviously, it doesn't stop like Impermanence. Impermanence is going to be a really, really big counter to the strategy, I would say, to that particular choke point. But obviously, they are going to be able to peek into your hand, so they can assess how much risk there is into going to that line. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? Like I said, if you're trying to play let's say the K9 Vanquishal deck as a Vanquishal deck first, like that is not going to work anymore. I think they took too much of a consistency hit. You have to play it more as a K9 deck more than a Vanquishal deck. Those are my overall thoughts, and just to close those is just I would say do not sleep on the other decks that have been hit. We're going to talk more in depth with like let's say K9 Crystron, but also like Mitsu essentially unhit outside of the bridge that was King of the Feral Imps. I think the deck is still really good. It's just that I would say something that is important to consider here too is that I do believe that sadly Draw and Lockbear is going to be a more present hand trap in this format, because I would say like because of the consistency hits of certain decks, and because let's say for example Yami lost a way to play around Draw and Lockbear, and now they have to search more. Same with Vanquishal, all of that stuff. I think Droll is perhaps going to see a resurgence in the format, and that's it.
Right. I think in the future, let's sort of concise things a little bit faster, if we could. But I'll go. Yeah, no, you're good. Don't worry about it. All right. My general thoughts on the ban list. It's the biggest winner, honestly, beyond just like what he mentioned with Yummy and Dracotail, is the Rogue deck. I think just with how oppressive some of the top decks were, I think it's a little bit easier for those who don't want to invest in the top decks to have just a little bit more easy of a time playing at locals. I do think my general idea of it objectively is that I think the ban list was a bit too radical. But subjectively, as somebody who doesn't play any of these decks, I'm jumping for joy because my deck was unhit despite its success at the World Championship, and now I get an even easier time to to deal with these decks. But yeah, I think while I didn't see any of this coming, I think it is very nice that if you guys want to play Hero or DDD or Lunalight or Gem Knight, that you'll have a little bit more easy of a time doing so. Since we don't really know, we are not putting the Luna Fusion at 1. You will learn to deal with it. As for like just the brief like semi limits and unlimits that I do want to talk about, the semi limit with Branded Fusion, I don't think it does too much personally. Like I think only people who care about that are branded enthusiasts, and that community is a beast in itself. And yeah, with the Snake Eyes cards being put back to 3 each, I mean they still don't have the OSS, but I think if there's a deck that can abuse Infernal Flame Banshee to search the Poplar, it might see some form of play, but generally I don't really see it as a whole doing anything without OSS.
Sorry, the only remark I would say regarding branded fusion is that obviously for branded decks is not perhaps not that big of a change because they already have easy access to the branded fusion. I would
Yes.
say the only difference here is that other decks that rather than branded now have easier access to branded fusion, and I thought ever since the limitation of the card, that was the thing that they wanted to avoid, to other decks to have easy access to the branded fusion. I think this change just comes as a way to boost the deck because it's being one of the promoted decks because of the anime series that is happening and all the alt arts and such. It's just a way to like make the deck popular for people to try it out, but I think it's just going to have the outside consequence of other decks are going to see this as an opportunity to perhaps cheese some strategy, right? Because I think the last time we saw branded fusion was like paired with something like voiceless voice, if I was not mistaken. Or I don't truly remember which was like the last time they paired this card in other decks, but that was the logic behind it. Like the limitation is just branded is the one that gets access to that card and not other decks, so it just doesn't like create some degenerate strategies.
The new Dracotail monster is a light spellcaster, so there's stuff there.
Yeah,
Post two.
Dracotail is the card that is the deck that I immediately think of, and and I think it's fine for branded to have.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, and it could just be a hot take for me. I don't personally care for branded at all. Like I see that, and I'm just like, this is like more times than not, it's more of a skillful matchup, and I don't know. Like I don't fear it. Like I understand the trepidate, the hesitation that one could have with Branded Fusion coming back to 2 and being a little bit more of a splashable engine. But I generally think it's fine. I don't think it changes anything greatly one way or the other. But I think it's more like something to be mindful of, in the same way that the Snake Eyes cards are something to be mindful of.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think if that we're good with that, we can go into the Forbidden List, just because it's much shorter.
Yeah.
And
Perhaps just a quick remark is just Lightning Storm to 3, perhaps not that big of a change, but just something that I would say is just worth noting. Um, just more board breakers into the format that are actually good. Um, I don't know if that dragonic diagram is going to have some sort of impact. I've seen some people just trying some weird stuff where they're trying to play it with some dinosaurs and Lithogas, the that level 9 worm that just rapes extra deck spots. Um, hopefully it doesn't come like it's not a thing because I just hate whenever there are decks that start ripping extra deck spots. I really hate it. And I don't know, just uh, Ash and Poplar is I feel like right now it's just whatever. Um, and sorry, and that's it.
yeah, no worries. Um, all right. So let's talk about the Forbidden List. Just because again, it's the shorter of the two,
Yep.
and obviously, I think it's easier to talk about these in a spectrum. Um, we have questions. One's about Trident. One's about Judge.
Someone asked why Solemn Judgment got hit, and I just said Yummy was like throwing in 3 copies and like Strike as well, just to like cover whenever breakers were thrown against him.
I
So,
guess
like
we
they would just set up their stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay. Yeah. I guess to add to yes. Damn it, Shirun, you're taking my answers, dude. Yes, the time
yeah,
rule, in my opinion, played a large part in
Yeah.
also in its thing. Just because
exactly. I would say I thought we're going to hold up that
yeah,
until we get onto the limited list, but if we're talking
yeah,
about it now, I don't
yeah,
know.
we'll just cover that really quickly, just because it's just one card. We'll save the Dryden question for afterwards. But
Hmm.
yes, I completely agree with Shirun, that the time rule had a large place into it because of the time. Just because there's no longer
The drawback.
disadvantage. Yeah, exactly. There's no drawback for losing the life points. Um, and
Yeah.
contesting the normal summon is really good for a lot of these decks.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was a really good choice, honestly. I one of my biggest concerns with the new time rule was just if I lose the dice roll, I know I'm going to eat like a solemn judgment game free for no punishment for my opponent because I mean, don't get me wrong, like people were playing this card before the change of the time rules, but there were times that even if I got solemn judgment, I still won because I was still higher on life points, and that was a big drawback to use a big deterrent to use solemn judgment. Especially if you're like getting held hostage by combo decks, right? I mean, I was just, I mean, talking from a hero point of view, right? Where the combo could take about 10 minutes of the clock. Um, you were just risking, right? Just losing to time because of the life point issues.
yeah, exactly. But whoever asked the Dryden question, we'll circle back to that later. But let's really just get into the forbidden stuff. I think the easiest one to talk about is the Paradise Smasher. That card should not be legal by any
Yep.
means.
Yeah,
There's really no explanation behind it.
Yeah.
The fact that essentially the K9 engine insulated it because of Lupus's effect to stop it from targeting, meaning you have to essentially prevent them from getting the 3 level 5s on the field in the first place,
I mean, I guess.
or
Sorry, perhaps you.
or
Sorry.
or the very cope way, if you're like going second, is like ghost ogring it and then hoping that you know the draw goes in your favor. But I think it's a terrible idea. I don't like floodgates that essentially say if it resolves, you basically are lapped out of your turn for the entirety. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I think it just should have been banned. And yeah, and decks were playing it before K9 even got here. It's a ban that needed to happen even before K9 occurred.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said. I mean, obviously, it was a problem before. It's just that Kanan made it more of a problem because it seemed like it was designed to be that way, right? Um, yeah, honestly, that I'm just it was like the most obvious thing to ban in this ban list because I feel like no one was happy of being just locked out of their monster effects until their turn, right? Just, I mean, there was just a lot of non games, right? I just put up this card and I just win, and that's it. Like, wow, what a concept, what a game.
There's not much to say. It just ended games instantly when it was summoned and resolved. Yeah.
All right. King of the Feral Imps. I am personally glad this is banned as well. I don't like the idea of Mitsurugi being a splashable engine in Ryzeal or in other decks. Yeah, especially when King of the Feral Imps in conjunction with Eclipse Twins makes Feral Imps a very easy thing to loop to get 2 searches. Obviously, yes, Droll was a counter to Ryzeal Mitsurugi, but the issue is that Droll was tied to your side deck because it just isn't good into the current Justice Hunter decks, with the exception of VSK9. But that was more of a situationally good card versus Droll being good, like definitively versus Ryzen Mitsurugi. Yeah, I didn't expect them to hit Feral Imps, but I'm personally very glad that they did. I think that with the Splash Mage hit to Malice, in my opinion, like these not necessarily needed to happen, but I think ushering Malice and Ryzeal out of the door, or just putting them on quote unquote life support, is very beneficial overall to the health of the game.
I mean, the thing is that just Splash Mage is kind of like just not a super duper well designed card because it was just fitting into the Cyber's combos love, right? They just made link climbing really easy, like no real effort put behind it. The thing about like the link climbing decks is that it should be hard for you to just assemble the big links because their payoffs are really big, right? That is the reward, the risk slash reward ratio, where if you manage to put up the bodies, then you start like doing the crazy plays, but just Splash made it too easy for you to like link climb with no effort. So right now, I don't think like Malice is necessarily that at all. Like it's just obviously it's not in a better place, but it's not like that. It's just they are just going to have to resort to older solutions they had. Perhaps they are going to start playing the Sky Striker engine again, and alongside with the Bestials and any kind of way to just get some free bodies. Perhaps if they're too desperate, they will start playing the Dotscaper again. But like they have ways to still build up bodies. It's not like an extra deck solution that only takes one spot and it's just very effortless. They will have to actually like risk something to build a board. That means that they have less spots for non-engine. That also means that they have to hard draw into more extenders. So I think that is a healthy change for the deck.
The way I see it is Splash Mage made it like you just turn 2 into 3, Whereas if they replace it with Lizardos or SP and they banish a Malice name, they're forcing a trigger on a Malice name and they can't use that one to come back again. So they're effectively going -1 like in their engine. So they're gonna have to make up for that. It's gonna make the combos way more awkward. So I think it's a healthy change.
Yeah, and Splash Mage's ban makes playing going second much harder as well. There's a lot more defined choke points beyond just like the Dormouse normal summon.
Yeah.
I was talking about this before the stream started, so I'm not really going to go too much into depth with it. But if you weren't here, basically my opinion on the Moon ban is that this needed to happen months ago or not at all. I think that the Fiendsmith engine as a whole has been power crept because of the turn 0 decks, where it can be much more easily addressed beyond just ashing the Requiem or imperming the sequence. I don't think it's been a relevant engine for a while now. And my comparison was to the banning of the Link 3 for Curious, the Lightsworn, when Tier Laments was a relevant deck. That ban came way too late because Tier was already like getting pushed out of the door. And for me, this is the same thing. Obviously, I don't personally play Fiendsmith decks. Blester and Enley do, so they might have more insightful commentary. But for me, this is the ban that I don't think needed to happen. Again, it just needed to happen much earlier or just not at all. And I think there are a few cards in my mind, at least, that could replace Moon on the Forbidden list.
Honestly, I don't have much else to add. It's just I feel like it's just a consistent change. Is how could I put it? It's just this ban list is just about letting um not letting other decks access other engines, right? It's a ban list that is cutting the ties to other decks to work as secondary engines to their main strategy.
Yeah. I feel like it did. Yeah, like what Royal said, it happened way too late. I mean, it was still fine as a hit. Like I don't really mind it. I think it's alright. It's good that like Fiendsmith won't be played everywhere ever again. But then again, it also like Fiendsmith was already on its way out. Not really a point. It's just like also like Buster just said, it's kind of just it's stopping all the old like engines from being like playable in the other decks as a sub engine, and it's kind of just making Josh more of the focus of the format.
Which, might I add, I think that's a good thing. One of my biggest issues with Yu-Gi-Oh, at least on the past formats, is just that there was really no identity to decks. There was just like just play everything that is good right now, and that's it, right? Like, well, what was the difference between like perhaps Raisio Mitsuri to like I don't know, like Raisio Fiendsmith? I don't know, in the sense that there like it didn't feel special, like there was no like oh, this deck usually like this is the flavor of this deck, right? They get to like exit summon a lot, and they have all this and that, and it was just just the new combo slot that gets to summon the most generic extra deck monsters that have like a good matchup or like good response to the most common threats in the format. And it's just, how is that different to just making like Bar on the Floor or like Alpalooza and such? It was just nothing special, right? Or at least that is how I see it.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Like, there's no definitive identity to decks if they essentially have the backup plan of, if you interrupt like my main engine's core plays, I have a fallback, which is just make Moon go into Requiem, etc., etc. But I think the other thing to note with Moon's ban is that Moon's ban doesn't necessarily kill the Fiendsmith engine. It just means you have to go into, I apologize, into other bridges. Yes, your body is a machine that turns two bodies into Moon of the Closed Heaven.
Exactly. I think that is a good change. Honestly, instead of just like Finsmith being accessible for every deck, that means that you have to pair it with decks that actually synergize with the strategy, right? Like, I mean, like the Live Twins or perhaps the Magical Musketeers. That is a more like focused approach to the deck building. I think that is a good change. I think that is it's good that not every single deck has access to the engine. I just feel like they made it that way because they were just really pushing for to sell the box, right? They just wanted people to buy the cards, and now that they have finally like squeezed every single penny of the engine of the cards, now they no longer need for every single deck to be able to play it, right?
Yeah, and I think BJ mentioned it in the first place. The Moon ban doesn't actually hit the the decks that actually like meaningfully use this, which are like the U-Bells, the Live Twins, the Magical Musketeers, even what is this deck? Like even like Chimera, for example, because they were like using the Evil Hero engine just to make. Like these decks will still be able to do the things that they were doing previously, but yeah, just eliminating the genericness of the engine is a nice thing. I just think again, this should have just been done a long time ago, and I think people are I think a lot of people are just going to be able to easily adapt, for the most part.
I do like how they made it stronger by bringing back Lacrima, but yeah, it's really just not going to change much at this point.
Yeah,
I think it's a neutral trade essentially,
Yeah.
or maybe a slightly net positive because of Lacrima's return.
Yeah.
yeah. I honestly, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead,
Oh.
because I was gonna move on.
Okay, no, it's just I think that's completely fair. I think this is like the best case scenario that could have happened for the engine. I think I would have like perhaps you got the cards, and I think you can still play those cards. It's just that you cannot play it in any deck, and I think that is a fair trade, right? Instead of just killing the engine, like limiting the engraver or like the spell card, that I think that would have pissed a lot of players. At least like you can still play, it's just that you have to pair with like an appropriate strategy, just instead of just splashing it on any deck that you want. The only thing that I would say as a hero player is just that I don't know how viable Fiendsmith Hero is right now, because I think the reason why the deck was good is was just like the trifecta of like Stratos, Vicious Close, and Moon of Close Heaven being like that the pillar, like that those three, like if one of those three cards was gone, like the strategy, I feel like it was going to hinder. And obviously the weakest link was Moon of Close Heaven. I know there are replacements, perhaps like the Evil Swarm Exiton Knight, but the thing is that Vicious Close is level 7, Stratus level 4. If like they made let's say Evil Hero Toxic Bubble, like if it didn't have like the hero lock, I think that strategy would have been still like being completely viable. Like nothing of value would have been lost, because you can still like make a rank 4 into the Exit Knight, and then you turn that into Defense Mid Requiem, and you start your combo. But I think that is no longer a, let's say, I would say like a competitive viable strategy. It doesn't mean that it's not playable. It's just that you're losing a lot of consistency if you don't have access to Moon of Close Heaven, and that's it.
Enley, do you want to say anything about Ubel? before we move
Yeah,
on?
sure. I tested a lot with BJ. We went through the combos. The boards are still, unlike Feats with Hero, like you don't need to go like into a different like line more or less. The thing is, Reaper Docus lets you change any of your fiends to a light fiend, so you can still do almost the same combo just with different sequencing. And because of Lacrima coming back, you can end on stuff like A-Bow now more consistently, because it enables sequence to become four bodies, four lake materials. So it lets you do wildly. It feels way more interesting now, and I also like that. I do of course play Ubel, but I do think it was like too easy to just go two monsters, moon, and then just do whatever, throw monsters around. So I feel like this was a really healthy hit like for the deck, but the deck is still very much fine. Like it doesn't actually like impact it too badly.
All right. I appreciate you, my goat. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions before we start going into the limited list? I know there was the Dryden mention, which I guess we can very quickly go over. Yes, I remember you, Myth. You mentioned it. I mean, I can go over the Dryden. I mean, I think we can all go over the Dryden hit or unlimited, I should say. For me, Dryden ultimately, and in conjunction with it, the Barrage Unlimit doesn't meaningfully do anything. In terms of my understanding as somebody who is now returning to the TCG after a long time of just playing like Master Duel, but understanding like the format where Zoo was relevant, Dryden no longer is the card that it once was. Like if we have a direct comparison to it, it's Ryziel Detonator, and you look at Ryziel Detonator versus Zodiac Dryden, and it's just like, oh, you chain to pop me, but then I just give off a material to survive the pop. Like it's not even close just how good the quality between the two cards are. I think Dryden is ultimately fine returning, and I think Barrage as well is perfectly fine. I think the biggest thing with Zodiac as a whole, apologies again, as a whole is actually the Broad Bull not being released, because I think Broad Bull enables more than Dryden or Barrage do.
Yeah, Blood Bowl is a way more bannable card because it's just the, let's say, the King of the Feral Limb issues all over again, because then every single deck has just easy access to any Beast Warrior that they desire from their deck, right? So it's just asking for some degenerate strategy to happen. And yeah, I also agree with you. I think just Dryden is just a relic from a different past, right? To a different format that is no longer the card that it used to be. It was kind of like a generic extra deck monster that just had like a quick effect pop that back then was really strong, really relevant. I mean, I'm not saying that the effect is no longer good per se. It's just that before that was like they could like end on that and a bunch of back row, and that was a really strong board back then. And now it's not nearly enough to stop any of the current meta decks. So it's just like a card that could have released before, and would have had like the same impact as now. Um, Perhaps maybe there's like a world where you could perhaps how's like maybe you can mix like the Zodiacs with something else and just take advantage of the Trident perhaps. But I don't know, like if there was nothing to be discovered in something like Master Duel whenever it happened, like the release of the card, I don't think there's nothing relevant to be discovered here in TCG, honestly.
There's like a possible variant between like Zodiac and Ryziel, but it's also like I don't see the point. Like in that variant, like there's not really anything there in my opinion. It's really just nothing as well. Like, a lot of these hits on this list are just gonna amount to not being anything relevant to the actual format.
Pretty much, I agree with Henley and Buster. As additional thoughts, yeah, no, Blester pretty much like anything I didn't cover. Blester basically was just like, yeah, bro, I got you. I read your mind. I think, yeah, I think it's just a relic of the past, and I think it's fine to come back in conjunction with the Barrage. I think, as much as I personally, obviously, would very biasedly want Broad Bull to come back because it's a buff to my favorite deck. I think if they were going to slowly start removing Zodiac cards from the list, Dryden is the much more reasonable unban.
Yeah. I mean,
but
Bad Bull like could come back a long time down, maybe. Yeah, maybe. eventually.
Who knows if Rat Pierre still deserves to be on the list.
Subjectively, I agree with you, Enley. But objectively, I do know that Broad Bull does enable some very nasty things, very
Yep.
similarly to imps. So I don't personally see it, but I will be still saying free Broad Bull.
Please.
Uh,
Just let me summon Leo.
But that said, if there are any additional questions, just feel free to leave them before we start really going into the limited list. Because I think there's a lot more meat here, per se. Also, very glad to see both BJ, because BJ said that he was busy. BJ said he was too busy to be here. No, BJ, I don't care.
Yo, get up here, bro.
And I'm also glad that Omni's here. Omni, without going too much into detail, he said he was moving this weekend. But
nice.
Also very glad to see him here. Also glad to see Coach here. But yeah. Oh, the stake your soul thing. It's what is it? Take your nose or something.
Your nose is
Your
mine.
nose is mine.
Your nose is mine. Yeah. To be honest, I like somebody educate me. I actually don't understand why they say that.
I have no clue. It just appeared. It exists now.
It exists. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It just appeared from nowhere, and now it's a thing.
Also, the fact that timeout. Sorry, to interrupt. Also, the fact that Coach is the absolute Zodiac enthusiast. I know he's just like salivating at these unlimits.
Yeah.
He's waiting.
Yeah. His time will come.
But if there's no additional questions, I think the easiest thing that we can move on to is the Yummy. Just because I think it's the least impacted, but I think it's the most relevant deck of the 3 Juhu decks to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I will allow one of you to take over. I don't want to yap too much.
Okay. You want to talk, Henley?
Sure, why not? Okay. Obedient School and Herald. So I've seen like a lot of people like saying Herald to 1 is not a big deal, which is kind of true because a lot of the lists were just not ending on 2 anyway. I think it's a healthy hit because 2 Herald was cancer, so I'd rather not. And also Obedient School being limited to 1 means negating it actually does something now because they can't just pull a second one out of nowhere and insta kill you. So I feel like these are fine hits, but Yummy is still like probably the best deck in the format. It doesn't really change too much. And like post dude, like Yummy just like has everything still, like because they just go marshmallow summon. So like they also like they get more resilience with marshmallow because they get like more of a grind game with adding back surprise or like getting the field spell because they can like get from banishment too. So you can't like banish it the field and then have them never have the field spell again. So despite it seeming like fairly decent hits, it's not going to change the format much. Also, yeah, Link Rebo, Tara just said. Link Rebo is also here, so they can now put a Link 1 on the field from Grave at any point. They can also dodge. So the deck's just going to get crazier, I think. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
Okay, yeah. Honestly, I feel like Yummy was the biggest winner out of all the hit decks because they are essentially losing nothing. I mean, obviously, I would say like the biggest, most impactful hit was the Herald hit because they were able to summon double Herald, and honestly, it was just really just not fun. Just the fact that the Herald is also a floodgate that prevents Forbidden Droplet to a certain extent. So yeah, it was really annoying. Honestly, you had to play Nibiru if you wanted to prevent the Nibiru turn one. Sorry, if you wanted to prevent the Herald turn one. Sorry, um, but essentially they are losing nothing. In fact, they are going to get stronger with the release of Marshmallow because of the things that Enrique was saying. That now they get to recycle spells. Like if you banish the field that gives them like attack points, like the strategy no longer falls apart and they have like a grind game now, like as if they needed anyone any kind of grind game because the field spells could recycle themselves and they just recycle the extra deck that they already spent. It's just it honestly is going to become a really annoying strategy, honestly. Like I don't know how we're going to handle that deck. I think it's going into the next format is going to be really strong. Perhaps it's going to be the best deck in the format. The Obedience School hit was necessary, I would say, but in the long run, it's not changing anything because perhaps they're losing 2 stars, but now they are adding 3 with the Marshmallow in the new set, which is Doom of Dimensions. So I would say it's just still biggest winner, and also because they also have like some sort of like protection if they manage to find a way to integrate the linker even into the strategy, like before perhaps you could like force the battle phase without activating any kind of effect to just beat over the synchros and just take out like just greatly diminishing like how strong of a disruption they could pull up on your turn. But now, like if Link Reboot is in the graveyard, they are going to stop that attack. So you're essentially losing your battle phase too. So it's really going to be really hard to beat Yummy, honestly. Um, so yeah, I would say that those are my overall thoughts. Yummy is really good, really strong. Perhaps the best deck in the format.
All right. My thoughts. He said that it's probably the best deck in the format. I would say it definitively is the best deck in the format.
Yeah.
Because again, these hits don't matter because Yummy has just so many replacements, even without accounting for the fact that Marshmallow is going to be coming. They already had the Piri Reese map. They can have the Sky Striker engine. Like they just have so many alternatives for it to still be functional. Yes, exactly. Sangan, 1-for-1. Like it's essentially just diminishing the quality of starters, but not diminishing the quantity of starters. I do think the biggest impact that that happened with Yummy specifically is the Herald being limited, because it essentially means that if you draw one, if not more than one board breakers, it's going to stick much harder than it originally did, because they could essentially set up 2 heralds if you were able to deal with their one, so they didn't essentially need to respond to specific board breakers, just because, as some of you might know, Surprise is an incredibly busted card. It is so good for the deck, and it's exactly why they don't really necessarily need to address your board breaker immediately, just because they'll set up the Snatchy in the graveyard, revive it, and go through there. Like, Surprise is a crazy card, and for me, that's why I was very personally adamant on not going super board breaker heavy into Yummy, just because with Solemn Judgment at 3, with Surprise usually being run at 2, I think they just had so many ways to push through you resolving a board breaker. It was like more like, oh, you just hand looped yourself. Which isn't to say that board breakers aren't good versus Yummy, but they're more situational than what people were making it out to be. I know a big thing that I was getting ribbed on or joked on about is the person who was playing Lunalight at the World Championship. He was like resolving like Book of Eclipse or Dark Ruler no more. But I was just like, at the same time, it's just like, they still have setup. It's not like a guaranteed win. And I still feel like it's this way now. Yummy is definitely a deck that you still want to be very mindful of when you're comboing, when you're sequencing, regardless of whatever deck you play. I still think, personally, that the best board breaker versus Yummy is actually, if like without like accounting for like archetype specific board breakers, like, you know, Fusion Destiny, because that card is still good, is Black Oak Laughs. Being able to shut down the Yummy Snatchy using the graveyard effect of Black Oak Laughs is so good. And yes, in Salesman, I just think it's very game winning comparatively, or at the very least, you're just asking the opponent to address it with the one herald that they have now, versus like, oh, them just saying, okay, you can resolve it, I'm just gonna make the second herald and still do what I do anyway. As for like, yeah, I don't think the hits do too much, because again, they're going net neutral or slightly positive with the fact that Marshmallow is just a very good card, and basically reinvigorates their card economy, or their quality starter count.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Honestly, if anything, I would say I'm also surprised that they didn't actually address perhaps Yummy Surprise as a limited card with all the support they were getting, and knowing that they have a way to recycle it. I just feel like having the Marshmallow and still having access to like 2 Yummy Surprises may be a little bit too much. I think that deck is just going to be really annoying to play against. Like, I know, it's going to be really, really annoying.
No, I agree. I still find it a very annoying presence.
Yeah.
But I can enjoy the fact that my deck has a favorable matchup into it. But if
I'm not surprised that Surprise didn't get hit, because I wasn't expecting a single card from Josh to actually like a new card to get hit. But I was like, this is going to be a difficult format to play against Yummy in. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that perhaps just complained a little bit from the new time rules, which honestly, now that I have played a little bit, some tournaments under them, I don't think they are necessarily bad anymore, but it's still going to be very frustrating because if you, I don't know, like if you're playing hero at least, I think that matchup always goes into time. Like it's
Yeah.
always dangerously going into time because heroes take forever to do the combos, and Yami also takes forever to do their disrupt plays. So it's always really dangerously coming into time every single time that I get to phase one.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Like any combo decks or like any, I think Tara was saying this a while back. Any rogue decks or cards with like a lot of different card activations that people don't know are just cooked because they're gonna read every card and then you're gonna be super slow, go into time. Yomi's gonna do these long interrupts, keep playing on your turn, and you're gonna go to time and get double lost. So, yeah.
I do not envy. I do not envy the paper players, unfortunately. But you guys will manage. I know you will. But with that said, if that is it, I think we can move on to the Vanquish Soul stuff. I can definitely start that.
Yeah, go for it.
Subjectively, screw that deck. It 1000% did not need.
So
It
true.
1000% needed hits. As a person, it is like in the deck that I play, Lunalight, obviously, it is the worst matchup to play into. It's just like absolutely just some of the most obnoxious gameplay that you can go through because hand traps, unless you can play like you're Yummy and you play like 20 plus hand traps, trading 1-for-1 with Vanquish Soul, unless they absolutely bricked, felt worthless.
Yep.
And breakers are even worse into Vanquish Soul than they are into Yummy.
Yep.
Like for me, this felt like it was a miserable matchup to play into. But if I was speaking objectively, I think the hits are too radical. The deck is already bricky enough as it is, with just the normal build. But the fact that they now essentially have to resort to using the Rescue Ace cards as supplemental fires to resolve their effects is, I don't know, I would say it's a blessing or a curse, I guess. Just because
It can be both.
yeah, it could be both essentially. I mean, it's a blessing in the fact that Raisin is just much better than any Rescue Ace card that they could run, which is they're running the Impulse, and I don't remember the name of the other card that they run. I know what it looks like in the top of my head, but
The Airlifter, isn't it?
yes, the Airlifter.
Yeah.
Thank you, good sir. Like those cards qualitatively are not as good as Raisin. Raisin is such a good card.
Obviously, it's just that they're just trying to patch the holes that the Banlist just made into the deck list. But then again, they're just trying to play it as a Vanquish Soul deck, which I think is no longer possible in a competitive environment. I think they have to play it more as a Canine deck more than a Vanquish Soul deck.
I agree with that. You essentially need to double down more on Case of K9, more Jokul. Which
if we're talking,
I think
like those, you go.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, I think just like more resorting to those. I know there's a new K9 card coming out. It's Noroi.
Yes.
Which I they can essentially implement into their deck. But Blesser mentioned it much earlier. It's essentially versus it's no longer a marriage of two cohesive strategies. It's more a K9 deck wearing a Vanquish Soul skin.
Yeah. That's what I was like about it. Like I was like, Noroi is like good and all, but like you can't like consistently go into like Vanquish Soul stuff. Like there was this I think you were talking about this earlier, this Saryuja line where you go draw 4 and then pray, I guess, to draw into the Vanquish Soul stuff. I think the ratio was at the point of Saryuja you have I think 10 cards that are Vanquish Soul starters left in deck. I think Mad Love, Raisin, Staker Soul, and something else. But now since we've lost like there's only one Staker Soul and one Raisin, the odds of drawing into them now is incredibly low. Like it's like almost half of what it was before. Like it hurts decks so much. I'm honestly like I enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Konami. But um, I don't know how this deck's gonna unfold. Like I've seen some lists without like the Rescue A stuff, and I'm like, how are you resolving fires? You can't. You're just gonna have to resolve Dark and Earth. Like Holisu doesn't have summon deck. The deck's just gonna be completely different now. So yeah.
I mean, I would say you still have fires, just perhaps like, for example, you still have Ash Blossom. There's no way you're not playing Ash Blossom. Um, Obviously, perhaps you'll have to play perhaps more like a little bit more of Jalong, even though it might be a little bit of a break, perhaps. But like, I mean, you do have fires. Just it's just that your deck, if your deck already had a little bit of consistency issues, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the deck was consistent. I mean, you just will have like some awkward hands from time to time, but now you actually have consistency issues, like real ones. So then again, it's just I would say the deck is now going to over rely on Soryuya. It's going to be a big choke point, like big evident choke point of the deck. If they get to resolve the effect, I would say most likely they're going to win. But if they are not, well, it's just the contrary. They're going to lose because they betted everything on the Soryuya. But uh, honestly, I would say like it's better this way. At least if you're playing against the deck, right? At least you have like a fighting chance of actually stopping the deck from just rolling over you if they actually manage to resolve the effect.
Yeah, I think the thing that you need to keep in mind is that as much as Vanquish Soul seems like a resolve one card combo, it is a deck that it needs to see specific pairs of cards to really pop off. So the fact that yes, it was obviously a bricky deck previously, but the fact is that you could sort of like maneuver through that if you had the right attributes in hand. It just really makes it a much easier deck to play through now. I think they'll again just really invest more into the K9 portion of the deck, and use the Rescue Ace cards as a band-aid for their attribute count. But yeah, generally I'm very happy with the hits, even though admittedly I never saw them coming, nor do I think solely objectively, that I think it's a good hit. I think Vanquish Soul could have had a little bit more time to play, but I'm not mad that it no longer has that.
I mean, if I can be completely honest, I don't think that's very surprising because if as much as people may be mad, it's just the Vanquish Soul, it's technically an old deck, right? It's just those are old cards, and also like Konami already made their money out of them from the previous stints and such. There were all a bunch of reprints, and they were no longer printing them. The thing that they want to push right now are the K9 cards, not the Vanquish Soul cards. So, uh, like if you already had like half the deck, you'll have no incentive to buy new cards, right? So remember the ban lists are always a way to push product onto their consumer throats, right? So it's just always some. I mean, it should be for seeking the health of the deck, right? The how good the deck actually feels and plays, but remember that the ban list is always a way to just push product for their upcoming releases.
With that said, I think it's time to address, at least in my personal, uh, what the F hit of the list, which is the Crystron inclusion. I think this is easily one of, if not the most money motivated hit of the ban list,
For sure.
because it absolutely does nothing to K9 Crystron because they were comboing without it. Because K9 gives you easy access to River Stormer, which gives you easy access to Scrap Recycler, which you can then loop through the use of Clockwork Knight. The only thing that it actually does is it kills Horus Crystron, and it kills Millennium Crystron.
I would say perhaps it also kills like let's say the follow-up play, because you usually use multiple inclusions for like, I mean, you use one on your first turn and then you use another one on your follow-up. So I guess they thought it was too good, perhaps. I don't know. Obviously, it could most likely than not be money related, right? Money motivated, um, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
But I think
it's really
Sorry, no, go ahead.
You go, go on. It's fine. I was not going to add anything anyway.
No, because I was going to say essentially they could realistically recycle it with the what is the name of this card? It's the Synchro, the Elisceptus, or whatever it is. It's not like they couldn't essentially loop it if absolutely necessary. It's just the fact that if for a lot of the Crystron players, I feel like Crystron is a very affordable deck in terms like without accounting for the K9 cards. I think it was just like Crystron, like at least in my opinion, was a very cool deck that deserved a little bit more time to shine post Supreme Darkness. But the fact that you essentially said, yeah, you have to play K9 Crystron or just suffer is not very fun.
Yeah.
Then again, perhaps no surprise because just Konami just wants your money.
Oh no! I agree with that. It's a business. I agree with that. It's just I'm just looking at it from a full player perspective, of course.
Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, it was a very budget friendly option, and now it's basically K9 Crystron or bust.
Yep.
And the other thing that I guess I can address now is that this does nothing to K9 Crystron. It's essentially a case of if that deck lands combo, you are in for a very, very bad time. And Lancia, and maybe we'll talk about this later in terms of our text. Lancia just isn't going to be in my side deck anymore, and I feel like I will be very scared going into this matchup because it's very volatile.
Yeah. To be quite honest, I'm not 100% sure about that. Like, I still believe that Lancia is one of those hand traps that you should be keeping on your side deck, or at least that is how I see it as a hero player. Because I would say most of the things that you already main are headed towards like beating the current meta decks, so you really don't need more of that. Perhaps what you need is to cover the weird matchups, right? The ones that usually whatever you play do not cover those options. But like Lancia is still, I would still say it's a really good card. It's just perhaps not good against like the top tier decks, but whatever rogue options are still available are going to be really hard to face if you're not prepared, right? And just because they are not top decks, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be prepared for them. It's the same case of like, I mean, I want to be prepared for Lunalight, even though like Lunalight is not a top tier deck currently, but it's a viable strategy that is definitely going to steal wins for any player that is not prepared for it. And I honestly don't like being those kind of players that just loses because they was not prepared for this particular matchup, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Sorry,
like in
go
the
ahead.
middle between that, and I think Lance is about to like really fade out of the format. Mal's is experiencing a drop off here. Only decks that like really actually get hit by it are like Lunalight, but like I don't think it's justifiably like useful. I already didn't feel like Lanzia was doing too much because I usually don't play against. I mean, it depends on your scene, but my scene really doesn't have too many Mouse players. And I have like high level tournaments going on now. There won't be nearly as many Mouse as before. So I don't know if Lancia is going to be like necessary. I could maybe see like playing two, I guess, but like, what's the point? Just may as well play three at that point. So I think I'm probably gonna be like I'm gonna probably keep it for maybe a week and then see how it performs, and then most likely gonna cut it because I don't think it's gonna come up too much.
Well, then because for starters, I still believe that there are really good decks in the format that did not get hit. One of them is Mitsu. Even though they lost the bridge, which is King of the Feral Imps, I still believe that that deck is really good. And for example, one of the things that I really had a hard time going against in the regional tournament was against a Mitsu Orcust, which to be quite honest, I don't remember them summoning the Feral Imp, and they still managed to get like the Orcus part and the Mitsu part, and it was just really strong. Like that was disgusting. Like I opened really good, but I had to go second. Like I opened like Hero Lives, Fusion Destiny, Evil Assault, things like that, like really good all gas kind of hand. But they had such a big amount of disruption, and not only like just disruption, like good amount of varied disruption, because they have like I can send this card to the graveyard, not target. I can destroy this card. I can steal one of your monsters. I can do all of these crazy things, and still I can Raigeki all your board with like the ritual monster from Mitsu. It was just disgusting, man. I was just thinking myself like, if I had like Lancia to stop the Orcus part, or if I had Droll to stop the all the cards that they were adding, I would have had a little bit more of a chance to win that game, you know. So that's that. I still believe that I would say like Nibiru, Lancia, and Droll and Lockbird are still really necessary cards in this format. They may not seem as good or relevant right now, but I believe they are going to be in the future.
I agree with Droll because I feel like Droll hits a lot of random decks, like Lunalight, Mitsu, all those. I think you gotta play it inside at this point, and it's gonna hurt decks more. Lancia, I don't agree because it just
I
doesn't
mean,
feel like
sorry.
it's gonna hurt them. Like most decks, I feel like just don't get hurt, and then like Nibiru, Nibiru, I felt like the only thing that felt like it actually did anything against was Paradise because at that point they would have summoned usually 5 times. That was like the only out to Paradise because you could like do it on summon and then stop it. That was like the only thing it was useful for in my opinion because like every time it would otherwise like Nibiru like other decks, they would still like just get to still play on. Or like they would have Ripper to negate if it was Languishful Canine, or it would be Yummy and they would just link it off and continue playing. I don't think it's a bad card, but I don't feel like it needs to be played like in every deck. And I feel like Lancia and Nib are like iffy.
I don't know. Perhaps it's just me. It's just that I every single time that I'm facing, for example, Yummy, I really like Nibiru. Even though, like, obviously, it's not stopping all their plays. Obviously, it's just the fact that it just takes all the previous bodies that they have already spent, and also like prevents them from getting into the herald of the arc light. Like I don't mind if they get like if they can still put up like a link and a synchro, like it's whatever. Just don't assemble like the FTK board, please. Let me play. And for Droll and Lockbear, I would obviously I would say it's still a necessary card, but on the remarks of it being able to stop Luna, I don't know to what degree, honestly, because
It, yeah,
if I can be completely honest, I believe that at the absolute least, I'm not an expert on the deck. Perhaps Ben Dyke can actually correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say like at the absolute least, they still get to summon the Liger Dancer, and
it's
the rest
SP
of
and
the board,
Liger. It
and the rest of the board
basically,
is just
yeah,
dependent on what else they hard draw.
yeah. So I think Royal could explain, but I also do play Lunalight, and it does like there's a line to get Liger and SP underneath Droll, and then you can get more depending on what you hard draw. But the thing is, like Droll is still strong to the deck because it puts you in like a situation where Droll plus one hand trap kind of like stops you. Like if you had, I mean, it depends on the line, of course. But if they start tanky, Droll just ends them. If they start Gold Leo, there's the line under Droll, but you could like hand trap other stuff. Like if you like, let's say Imperm Perfume Dancer, it kind of just ends their turn unless they want to make like SP. So yeah,
Okay,
I don't know
sure.
if Royal wants to add stuff to that.
I think it's fair because obviously if you pair like the draw with more hand traps, then it has way more of an impact for sure. But sometimes, or at least in my case, right, because I'm playing heroes and like the non-engine spots that you have are very limited, and sometimes you are lucky if you happen to draw into one. That is when it can feel a little bit rough. But then again, just from a perspective from a hero player, sometimes, right?
Okay, I guess I'll go. Um, I agree with Enley in terms of Lancia. The thing with Lancia in terms of the original deck we were talking about, which is K9 Crystron, is that it actually doesn't really stop them too much from actually ending on their full board, which is the problem. Which again, I don't think in comparison to some of the other like high tier decks, it's going to be as represented in comparison. So for me, at the very least, I can test without running the Lancia, and if I feel like I need to like implement it back into the side deck, I could. But comparatively to what you were saying, Blester, I think if I was basically saying, do I rather keep Droll or do I rather keep Lancia? I rather would keep the Droll over the Lancia, just because Lancia really, for the most part, is a rogue deck killer. I mean, yeah, they're both rogue deck killers, you know, equally, but Droll is more applicable comparatively to Lancia.
Sure, it has a wider coverage. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. For the Lunalight thing, I mean, JiGun can attest to it. As much as yes, Lancia I would say is the worst hand trap for that deck to deal with. But JiGun can speak to it. I still summoned Liger on him through Lancia. So it's more so like in the same way that that hero can essentially play through specific hand traps if they draw correctly, or if you manipulate your hand in a way where you have all the resources that you need prior to them hitting you with that sort of like turn skip hand trap. You can end on very good boards, or like the same board that you generally would end on through the turn skips. Again, with Lunalight specifically, Lancia is the worst of the two to deal with, but you can still do it if you're smart about how you sequence it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like then again, I never said that you could never do the Liger Dancer. It's just that I feel like with Lancia, you really have to spend way more resources For example, if you get hit by troll, I think it's way more feasible to just make Liger Dancer rather than with Lancia.
Well,
Disagree.
yeah, I disagree
disagree.
too.
Um,
You
the
can you wanna
thing
go or?
with no, I got this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
the
got
thing with Lancia on Lunalight, obviously, one, it depends on obviously your opening hand. Two, when are you actually using Lancia? The most feasible option to use Lancia is when the Lunalight player gets the perfume in the not the fusion monster, but the actual spell into rotation. Because is it a case of are they searching for the wolf or the tiger? Like, if you can cut them off of doing that, then yes, Lancia is a little bit more effective in that regard. But if you can account for the fact that they have they might have the Lancia, you can go into cross sheet plays that essentially allow you to hard make Liger and still end on SP and still have the Hound negate in the graveyard. And because of the fact that you don't that Martin is not being banished by its effect no longer, you can get the Masquerade, the Lunalight Fusion, or if you do run the Serenade Dance in your deck, you can still benefit off of the fact that you resolved Lancia. So it is very much like, again, the way that hero functions. Like, if the hero player manipulates their hand prior to like being hit with these specific turn skip hand traps, like accounting for them in their combo, you can still do most, if not all, of what you are already planning to do.
Yeah,
I see.
I feel like the way that I handle Lancia is I've had games where I intentionally make a weaker board so I threaten Liger earlier, and that way they are forced to like Lancia, and I can like play around Lancia, like I can fuse off hand and field instead of banishing. Like even if it'll end up with a weaker board, there are decks that just die instantly if I make Liger. So if they don't have Lancia, I just kind of win. Whereas like Droll, I feel like when I end up like going, like let's say they droll me and I go for Silverhound, and then I'm forced to do a different line. If they like manage to stop me, I don't really have like a way to play around it. Like I can't just like manipulate my hand to like play better, I guess.
Okay. Then again, perhaps there was a misunderstanding. I'm not like choosing like Droll over Lancia or vice versa. I'm playing both in my side deck. But then again, just I don't know. I'll still have to see how the format develops, and perhaps there's going to be a change in my side deck. I still don't know, but I think it's just worth considering still.
Yeah, I think for me personally, the reason I was running Lancia had nothing to do with it generally being good. It was just more so, what am I running into? And a lot of that, at least for me, was Malice and Orchist. I actually didn't run into too much Crystron, but again, Lancia doesn't do too well into Crystron, or it doesn't do enough. I'll test without it, but ultimately, yeah, I don't really see it being too much of a loss if I drop it from my deck list.
Okay. Yeah, I would say it's fair.
Was there anything else we had to talk about, like for limited?
I mean, the rest of the hits are essentially like Ryziel, Malice.
Yeah, just old stuff.
And I guess we already covered for Solemn Judgment. I think then again, I'm going to repeat it. I think that is a good change, simply because the thing that happened with the old time rules is that you were essentially discouraged to just play all three Solemns, because if the match happened to go into time, you were essentially losing because of the life points difference. But now there was no no discouragement. If you win the dice roll, you essentially have access to triple Solemn Judgment in your on your last game, and could essentially seal the deal, right? Just essentially guaranteeing your win, and that just feels like kind of like, well, it's just not fun. It's not fair, would say. So I'm okay, like, if you happen to draw into your only Solemn Judgment instead of just having to deal with two or three, depending how you open, right? On top of
Mhm.
whatever board you manage to assemble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like very quickly going over like the Malice and Ryziel hits. X, to be honest, would have rather it had been banned, but I don't think a starter should also be a board breaker at the same time. Like this card is X is just absolutely one of the most custom cards I've ever seen for like a basic main deck monster.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Sharon already said it. He's too fast, bro. I was gonna say maybe limit X, ban aggregators, and or just ban aggregator, and then kind of solves that.
I mean, I can agree with that. But yes, I can agree with that entirely. But yeah, I think if you do for some reason want to allow the Cybers decks to still have aggregator, yeah, I'll take the hit or the ban on X, because I don't think that's a healthy card. A card should not be
Yeah.
chain blockable, an excellent starter without taking up your normal summon. Yeah, there's just too many things that X does that
hmm
It was
it's one of the most, it's too
too low
custom.
commitment for what he did, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Just throw
exactly.
it down, get a search, get a negate. Like, I
And
feel like it was also
as
like. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, you got it.
Okay. I felt like it was also late. Like, I wish this happened. Like, I know we didn't get a ban list like for a while, but like, if this happened a while back, like when Ryziel was actually like an issue, that would have been nicer. But this is like, all right, I guess, because why not?
So yeah, I don't know if there's something else we could add to this.
Um,
I guess we haven't talked about Summon Sorcerer. I don't know what I could say about the card. I'm not too familiar with it.
I think Summon Sorceress is fine. It was errated. It
hmm
locks you into whatever card type that you summon off of its effect. I think the main applications really is just either another way for like Fiendsmith lines or
Yeah.
like monotype decks. Like what am I thinking? Like Dino. Not that Dino
Yeah.
really needs to play this card, but like decks that are very like self-contained.
Yeah.
I don't think it functionally moves the needle in either
Yeah.
sense.
It's been legal in MD and OCG for a long time, and it hasn't really done anything at all. So it's just there.
I see.
Uh, is right. Yeah, it's just kind of there. It's just been legal in OCG and Master Duel. Yeah.
And I would say that's everything, right? I would say just so I don't know if we covered the Lacrima. I would say just the only reason why it came back was just because of the time rules. I would say just because of the easy access to the 1200 damage, and we already had like the issues of stalling and just cheesing out a win that you should have, cheesing out a duel that you should have won just because of that time rule. So I guess it can come back no problem. What would what would you say, guys?
I mean,
Yeah.
Lacrima, it is a buff to Fiendsmith, which I find fine because they also banned Moon. So it again, like, there's so many hits on here that just they're kind of late and they just don't really change too much. Which is, I think that's one of them. The time rule thing is like kind of the reason. It's back, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say about Lacrima. I do think it is a nice buff, quote unquote, for Fiendsmith decks. Um, but ultimately, it still doesn't address the fact that Fiendsmith is a power crept engine in comparison to the Canine engine and the tier or the turn zero decks, I should say. Um, and those decks still engage in the same way or in the same patterns as when Moon was still legal. So I don't know. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I guess then that covers the entire Banlist, right? I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to say. To just, I would say it's a good point to close the discussion. Then.
I think personally, without accounting for your archetype specific decks, I think if we're talking like what you should be siding or what you should be maining, obviously again depends on what decks you're playing. But I think cards like I think Dark Ruler No More can be a little bit more impactful now. I think Forbidden Droplet for decks that really need to resolve their turn one plays. Like I'm currently playing Utopia because I'm going to be doing a stream on it in some amount of time, and that deck can't play Impulse, it can't play Purge. It really needs to resolve its turn one plays, so I'm running Droplet just so I don't get hit by the Holly Sue or the Azuna as bad, or if at all. Decks that don't like essentially have the sort of like stickiness tools of like a fusion deck, for example, because like you know, a lot of the fusion decks can benefit from like Book of Eclipse, for example. I know I'm gonna be roasted for this because Mr. Tom K was playing Book of Eclipse during the finals, but I've already explained, at least in the perspective of Lunalight, it still runs a lot of Xyz monsters, so you can't necessarily flip it with a Book of Eclipse as easily as you do a hero.
Yeah.
Especially because Gold Leo is very hand specific. You typically want to resolve both of the effects rather than just one of them. So Book of Eclipse isn't as beneficial versus like say you do a hero lives, summon Stratos, like booking the Stratos isn't as detrimental. It's not detrimental to it because it's going to resolve and you're still landing the cards. Like the worst thing that they could do is like try to attack your Bion when it's searching for the poly, but you already have another poly searcher anyway through the furnace whenever that comes into the TCG.
Yeah.
So like Eclipse is a good card, but it is dependent on the deck that you are running. It is not a one size fits all answer.
Well, I guess that I would say that is good, right? That is one of the things that goes along with the criticism that I had that decks usually don't have a flavor to it, right? They don't have something unique about it, because now I feel like it's more defined. There's more uniqueness to decks because, let's say, I mean, if you're playing Yummy, it's a very defined synchro deck that also play links, but they have access to cards that other decks do not, like perhaps as a starter Obedience School, and also like as non-engine Dominus Purge, because not every single deck is able to play Dominus Purge. For example, your deck can, I mean, perhaps Book of Eclipse is not as good, but you can definitely play cards like Dominus Impulse without losing anything really. That is a benefit. That is something that also defines your deck.
Yeah, I do agree. Like if you look back only a few months, you'll see, oh, here's my deck. I play Fiendsmith because it's good, and that's the deck. Like, yeah, that's just how it was. And I feel like now This Banlist is making decks more like interesting. Yeah.
If I was to say just like a preliminary idea of what I think the best decks in the format are going to be, based off of like my own personal experiences and what I think, and what I see other like professional players thinking are going to be up there, I think the best decks are going to be in no specific order. I think it's going to be Dracotail. It's going to be Yummy. I think Lunalight's going to be up there. I do maybe see a world where people convert back to pure Mitsurugi. I think the engine is still very good, and without running, I think they can just run Dominus Impulse generally anyway and be fine. Yeah. I think they'll be very good on their own. It's just it won't be as high octane as Ryziel Mitsurugi. And then maybe some of the relevant rogue decks like Striker, Gem Knight. I think Vanquish Soul and Malice will still be relevant, just not to the same degree as they once were. And maybe Ryziel can adapt with either the Heraldic cards or the Animat cards. I just don't think it'll be as good as what the Mitsu engine was for that deck.
Okay. I would say, perhaps honestly, I don't have any doubt in my mind. I would say Yami is going to be the most dominant force in the metagame. It's going to be considered the best deck in the format at the beginning of it, and people are just going to try to bank into having some sort of good matchup going into Yami, and then those decks are going to start to balance out each other, and then just Yami becomes good again because they're starting to just fight against each other, and then just Yami just takes advantage of that too. For example, I would say Yami is perhaps going to win the next big tournament, and then everyone's just gonna try to counter Yami, and perhaps Dracotail is going to be like a good deck to play against Yami, right? And then I don't know, perhaps it's going to steal a win, and then people are going to say, "Oh, now Dracotail is the best deck," and now they're preparing for it, and they're going to like peg it down, and then suddenly Yami wins again, and the cycle is just going to continue. I would say it just resumes into like it's going to be a very varied format. There's going to be a lot of variety in this format, and I feel like this is the most rogue friendly let's say format we have had in a long time. Perhaps this is going to be one of those formats where people are going to look back and look fondly, like, oh, you guys remember when Justice Hunters were released? You could play essentially anything that you wanted and actually do good, and people, yeah, we're going to play that format back.
Yeah. I don't mind the format that we're going to be going into. I think it's just more so you might want to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely a more defined top decks, and then there's a good drop off between the top decks and sort of like the playable decks. Like, for example, as a person who plays White Forest, I think it'll be very good to play this format if you're an enthusiast of that deck. Or again, like Hero. Like, I don't think Hero is better than White Forest, for example, but I think it has all the tools that you would want from a deck to compete versus what will be most represented or most available.
Yep.
And I think the sort of like hand trap lineup might be a little bit easier for any sort of rogue deck that you might be playing. Like, obviously you can't go in there with anything, but I think you can go in there with a little bit more of a a deck that you prefer over like the sort of like high octane decks that were being played previously.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
But yeah, I think if there's no more questions, I think we can wrap it up at that.
Yeah.
Mr. JiGun, are you still there?
Perhaps he's just sleeping. Yeah, okay.
No. He's 6 hours ahead of me, if I remember correctly.
Oh,
And he typically just sits